Our next presenter is Devin Gray, and he will be speaking on growing green with overgrowth. Please welcome Devin. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Growing green with overgrowth in the most overused type font ever. So I'm here to talk about twisty, twirly, curly things that like to grow more often than they should. I'm not just talking about my hair either. I'm talking about overgrowth. Now, what is overgrowth, you might be asking? Well, I'll show you next. So, as you've probably seen anywhere that generally has any grassy or any type of foresty area, overgrowth is when we have things like vines, when we have things like foliage or even branches that have grown over such a long period of time, just start to grow over a lot of structures, whether they be natural or unnatural. More often than not, when referring to overgrowth, we say unnatural. Overgrowth is very often seen as a negative aspect, but hopefully, I'm going to show you why it's not. Now, how would overgrowth personally affect us as a college? Well, the big thing I put right there, it's a biodiversity web. I believe that overgrowth will be able to bring biodiversity to our college in ways that really aren't very common. It could bring about new plant life, and what I believe is most interesting, insect life. Imagine this. You have a professor who goes for any type of biology who wants to get a new sample for insects. Now, he could obviously go to a storeroom or use the same overused, trite examples that he's always brought out in class. Or he could have the students go out anywhere on campus, anywhere. Take an insect. They don't have to kill it. You could put it in a little tiny styrofoam cup. Bring it in and have the student explain it in front of the rest of the class. I believe that that is going to be very beneficial if we do decide to do that. A little redundant there, but hey. So, what's the catch? Well, I'll be honest. I'm not here to just shill for overgrowth. It obviously does have some drawbacks. With overgrowth, it can cause some problems with structural integrity, and it's all dependent on what you use. That's why I use a little Jenga set. Structural integrity is very important to a building. It's what causes it to stand up. If we did not have good structural integrity, everything just falls. Which is why we have to make sure we know what we're building, and we have to make sure that we maintain it. But the problem is, too often, we fully just eliminate the overgrowth rather than trying to actually regulate it. And now let's talk about the most dangerous aspect of this, the vine that ate the South, kudzu. Now, this type of vine is something that's very specific to Asia and southern Asia. However, it moved to the United States and slowly began to eat up much of the southern region. Now, I don't know about you, but the vine that ate the South sounds a little bit malicious. So why am I saying this is a good thing again? Well, because the same thing that humans have done with almost every single little thing we put our hands on, we can control it without eradicating it. Control is a very big aspect of human existence. As you see here, this is a house that's been overgrown by a vine. But it has not been completely eradicated. It's been put into the system. And honestly, if you ask me, that's a pretty good looking house. So if we find a way to just control this vine, to maintain it and keep it in a sustainable level, we can ultimately create a more biodiverse area within our life. You may also be asking, but I don't think it looks that good. It usually looks like this, which I don't know why you would think that that looks bad. Like, it's an ancient temple with a tree growing in it. It's sweet. And yeah, I guess you kind of do have an argument there. It's not really aesthetically pleasing to a lot of people. But here's where the trick comes in. We have to use moderation. Just like we've seen throughout any natural system, it requires moderation. And like you see here, there's overgrowth, definitely, but not enough to where it becomes obnoxious. It's to a point in where you could actually create a to the point where you could actually create a good system without it being overbearing. But why though? This is an emblematic picture from the show Futurama. You see, greenhouse gases have stolen the sun rays' money, and they have crowded around Earth. So, the main reason why this is extremely important as well is that biodiversity is a very good thing, but it's not as good as the absorption of CO2 and greenhouse gases that are brought about by not just humans, but animals, anything really. What these plants can do is that they could start absorbing more CO2 and exhaling more oxygen, literally everywhere. If you had overgrowth in architecture, if you had overgrowth in just regular old systems, you would output the amount of oxygen substantially. Think about it, all the architecture in human existence covered with greenery without being too overbearing, something we could control, that'd be pretty nice. So, ultimately, this ends up helping making the world more green. This is something known as the Tunnel of Love in Ukraine. It used to be an old, fairly run-down, old Soviet train station. However, nowadays, it's used as a symbol of purity, of peace, and of love in Ukraine, where a lot of couples like to go and... But what does this ultimately mean? It means that we have to think more so about how we could create biosynthesis, take the synthetic aspects of our existence and blend them with our natural environment. The coal factory down by where I live in Bartonville, for a long time used to be extremely dangerous. It had a huge output of dangerous gases and smoke. However, it was only until recently that they installed a new type of system on top that completely filtered out much of the original carbon output, replacing it with regular old steam. This isn't a very commonly known aspect, but it's very nice, and it's very good that they did this. But they need to do more. You see, they left a huge carbon imprint where they used to have all of the coal burning. How could this be fixed? By putting more plants on the actual place where they work. If they allowed for more vines to grow on the campus, if you could call it a campus, I guess facility really, then it would be able to suck up even more oxygen and create a sustainable system. Thank you very much.